and yet the distance between us and God is so much greater. It's infinitely greater. How can we possibly say, and we do it all the time, there's no point to this suffering. There's no point to the suffering that I'm experiencing that God might have that I can't think of. And so here's the point that makes very clear. Is the irony that agnosticism about God, because of suffering, follow this, agnosticism about God because of suffering comes from a refusal to be agnostic about the suffering itself. You see that? Agnosticism is the view that a truth value or truth claim of a certain idea is unknown or unknowable. And so agnosticism about God because of suffering can only exist because they're being agnostic, or they're refusing to be agnostic about the suffering itself. In other words, if a person says, I just can't understand why God would allow this to happen, it's because they assume they understand suffering too well. They're refusing to be agnostic. Tim Keller wrote it like this in his book, Reason for God. If you have a God so great that you could be mad at him for not preventing evil and suffering, then you've got to have a God so great and so infinite that he could be so great and infinite as to have reasons for allowing it to continue that you cannot discern. You can't have it both ways. If he's great enough to be mad at for not stopping it, then he's great enough for having reasons for it that you can yet see. So the Bible teaches clearly that God is in charge, and that yet he does not design or author evil himself. You say, I don't buy that. Then you're saying, I refuse to bow to the paradox of the mystery of the world I live in. And this does not mean we become callous to pain or suffering. Oh, God's got a reason, God's got a purpose. Doesn't help anybody when they're suffering. Doesn't help anybody. We don't become callous or cold-hearted to suffering. We weep, our heart breaks, we hurt because suffering is hard. Pointless suffering, apparently to our perspective, is hard. But it does not mean that we cash in the chips. So the Bible gives us this worldview that says God is so good and so great that he can create a world that allows our choices to be real and yet do it in such a way that our choices don't determine things ultimately. And can someone say, praise the Lord?